Hello, good morning, good people. Thank you for joining us for the show. We do encourage you that for the next 3 hours, make sure not only watching us on the screen becomes how you get educated and given all the best current affairs information right this morning, but also getting relevant on our social media platforms. So on Facebook, when you go there, go search for JoyNews on TV and make sure that you follow us. Click those notification buttons. Do same for our Twitter handle at JoyNews on TV. Do same for our YouTube channel, JoyNews TV. And as you do all these, know that we have a lot of in stock as far as news, current affairs, the best of entertainment, highlights, and sports right here. You know, the president just yesterday made a good intervention that I personally thought was one of the best things that could have ever happened to those 14 dismissed students because they rampaged, were very unruly, disrespectful, indisciplined, generally not on the second cycle educational system we have, but even against the president, the rest of those serving in government and all of us. But the intervention by the president also speaks volumes about how we can, all as a people, learn some great lessons. Because there's always redemption at the end of each cycle. So it doesn't matter whether you've sinned against even the Pope or even God, you're always given a chance or an opportunity for you to redeem yourself. And what the president has done will go a long way to motivate these 14 students and the rest of this batch of senior high school students sitting for the WASSCE. But we can also translate that into our lives. Who has wronged you so much so that you have become very bitter, very hateful, and much unforgiving? If this opportunity could be afforded that person who so much has incurred your wrath, it also opens up a lot of opportunities for redemption. And I'm hoping that all of us could take some great cues. As we do that, let's all get ourselves motivated and, extend that hand of benevolence and forgiveness to all those who have wronged us. And talking about all that, NDC has been complaining, especially within the period when we're having the voter registration exercise, about how a lot of things had been ongoing. The MPP said, well, everything is okay. So we decided to have a great debate between the national youth organizers of Ghana's top political parties. I'm talking about the MPP and NDC. So Henry Nana-Boakye, national youth organizer for the MPP, and his counterpart in the NDC, George Akufo-Addo, decided to have a great conversation with us, and we're going to bring that to you this morning. And it's all about their own debates based on their comments and what they think their observations are during the registration period. And now that it's ended, what do they seem to think based on their assessment and how they hope to look forward to this electioneering. It's a short period, just leading up to December 7, 2020. So make sure you stick and stay. Promises to be exciting just immediately after sports. And following that forgiveness by the president, we also do know that, well, the directive was very straight. The Minister of Education is expected from this morning to engage the Director General and the rest of the management of the Ghana Education Service on that ban of the 14 students and their ultimate banning, if not expulsion from their schools. But what does it mean? How will this serve as a deterrent to others who are also participating and even future candidates in the WASSCE or third-year students? Well, one of the key people who have been making commentary on this subject over the last week or 4 or 5 days is Thomas Musa. He is General Secretary for the Ghana National Association of Teachers. We'll have him on board and we'll have some great discussion alongside that. And just after the president's message, we also do know that we spoke to Executive Director of Child Rights International, and Bright Appiah had his organization issuing a statement before the president's own statement or directive coming in. But how do we assess all the situation? Make sure we have this great discussion as we intersperse all these with the latest, because also joining this conversation is Peter Ante. He's Executive Director at the Institute for Education Studies, and we'll have some great time around there. But Look, as we're talking to the national youth organizers of the MPP and NDC, what do us as ordinary people think about what transpired during the voter registration? And do we think the exercise went well or not? So we're going to roll on this morning. Nancy Amafajiradosi is going to be coming from a community in the Odododiodoo constituency. We'll have some great expectations from all of us who are resident there. And make sure you catch the train of the crew who will be coming through. Kadi will be in with the latest showbiz. And then we'll have some great highlights from Benedict also in sports. Stay with us. We'll bring you the latest news headlines. Thank you for joining us for the show. In the first story, the police have begun investigations into a shooting incident at Offinso near Shanti region, which has left some 2 men in critical condition. Now, the 2 were in a vehicle en route Kumasi. One was shot in the stomach and the other in the waist. There's more in the following report.
The incident happened at Ahinkro near Offinso in the Ashanti region. Live FM's Mohammed Nuruddin, who was aboard the vehicle, reports both men were rushed to the hospital by some police officers who came to the scene of the attack. Driver of the 13-seater commercial vehicle, Akufo-Addo, narrated what happened.
And you two able to do that, yes, so and I 6 stop here. Say, who do a minimum quantum of his hall, and I had Daniel, and I put it in your body, sponsor more freight with
I took off from Teshiman around 11 p.m., but we got information that there are armed robbers on the highway. But the police assured us that their colleagues on the Aminu Quanta stretch will help us.
The armed robbers for Ma, when you shoot Munipa 5, Bakujina left, and Bakujina right. And Tibakumbe Gina Queen Fifi, Eddie training face, and I say, Young Pon Yedin, Young Pony Dini, and a midi a can yedin, a face I'm Roberts and Bako. Timidi face na what dodgy and what dodgena, you know, me as a what Jena driver side, and a Minusu Jena.
When we got to Offinso, we saw 5 armed robbers. They shot into the vehicle and intercepted 2 of the passengers, with the intestines of one gushing out. He's at the hospital.
Safo Yaw ama me kase akwano sono epi baakuso etuena kananan.
He is grateful to God for saving his life and that of his passengers.
Nti etima ya brebre etima bedu ahinkrum nti nyankopon na yeda na ase nti asede bia etumbia na nyankopon na yiye nyina yede efirimu.
Another passenger who helped transport the wounded men to the hospital also spoke to JoyNews.
But you're from Dawda Ibrahim. Yeah, I'm Roberts and they see and Miana Mede, your friend saying, Yaw Safano, dear Nansunupi, and Miana Medenoko Offinso Hospital. Go through her daughters and a day, one my idea. You drew her one idea, or more veggie, your friend saying, patient and I don't know who inside honor, and a more papa and honor, or more dress crew.
JoyNews understands the incident, which occurred around 1 a.m. this morning, was the second in less than 2 hours on that Kumasi Techiman road. Earlier, there were some attack on drivers at Tanoso near Techiman, but many drivers apparently got wind of that information and therefore changed their route to avoid any such incident.
Away from crime, let's focus on education, because the Akufo-Addo-based Bright Senior High School has dismissed media reports that its principal, Bright Yaw Amponsah, instigated a student to attack WAEC officials serving or supervising the WASSCE at the school center. WAEC has so far accused the principal of being behind the attack on its invigilators when students were writing the social studies paper. In a media release issued by the school, the administration noted that both the director and the teachers were not present during the chaos. Head of Communications, Dr. Isaac Asari, spoke with JoyNews.
I want to state that none of the teachers was there at the time of the incident, and also that the director of the school was prevented before to enter the premises before the students. So I think there was no way one could suggest or think that they instigated the students for that behavior. But all that we would say as management is that we condemn the act and that we apologize to WAEC and the entire nation. Cooperating with the police and WAEC, our doors are open. Whatever they would need, whatever information they would need from us, we are ready to avail ourselves and also avail the students so they can also have such information. However, notwithstanding, we have learned so many, we've got so many stories from the students trying to tell their side of the story. But these things, we cannot independently say these are right or whatever. These are views of students. Some of them said they were prevented from going to the urinal. There are others who are reporting that they were slapped. One of them said her answer shading sheet was torn.
Leading scientists have warned the continuous total disregard for COVID-19 protocols could undermine efforts being made to contain spread. Now, speaking to Israel Eye, Dr. Yaw Amponsah and Dr. Peter Kwashi of the West African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens at the University of Ghana observed, because Ghana's fatalities were on the low, the impression has been created that coronavirus was not a danger to public health, an impression they believe needs to be eroded.
This disease is different from many other pandemics or epidemics that you've seen in that it's very hidden. It only, a small fraction of people who are infected will present with symptoms serious enough to take them to the hospital. Majority of people will just take paracetamol or not feel anything at all. And so testing has been the bedrock. The WHO and actually the Ghana Health Service have also, and the president, His Excellency the President in his speeches have constantly talked about testing, tracing, isolating. The idea that the only way to really control the spread of this disease is by widespread testing. And so Africa has had a challenge in that, this virus is also difficult to test for. It's not cheap to test for. It's a virus, it's a respiratory virus, and typically respiratory viruses need to be detected by PCR.
As for less people being infected, I think even the numbers will show you that that's not true. The real issue here is, I think it's threefold. If you look at the positivity rate has gone up. And in the past, we were able to test a lot at a high rate because we were pooling samples and having reagents and the like. Now, once your positivity rate goes above 8 to 10%, you can't pool samples anymore. You have to run one by one by one. So whereas the same reaction in the past, you could have done 10 samples, now you're doing one. So from the same reagents that you would have used to do 100,000 tests, you're now doing 10,000 tests. And I think that's why our rate of testing has dropped drastically. Now, what that translates to is if you're testing less people, you have more backlog, these people never get a result. And I think it's gotten to the point where if your sample is 3 weeks old, it potentially may be discarded. You'll never get a result. And in Dr. Bediako...
Hold on, I like you to clarify that. You're saying that what? If your sample is 3 weeks old,
that is hearsay. But
no, it's actually, let me jump in. It's actually the official policy. I've seen it in an official policy document that they are prioritizing samples that are at least within 2 weeks because the discharge period is 14 days. So if Dr. Techi sends a sample and it comes back after 14 days, it's no use to him. So the official policy to deal with the backlog has actually been that they prioritize. But I think that now my understanding is the backlog has been cleared, so things are moving better. But beyond 14 days, they wouldn't test it.
So one thing we've noticed.
This is interesting.
One thing we've noticed, Dr. Bediako mentioned that we are screening mostly healthcare workers, but we're moving to the public pretty soon. But one thing we've noticed that there have been people who have taken a test, never got their results, and they have antibodies. And we've gotten a number of them. They never got a result back, which means that during their period of time waiting, and they weren't necessarily in government isolation, if they were not taking precautions themselves to self-isolate, these people were walking around thinking they were fine. And in most cases, these were asymptomatic people. We've seen that in health professionals. We've seen that in the public. So that's, I don't think that the fact that there's less burden at the centers is indicative of less spread. What it actually may mean, and that it might be a boon to us, is that we are not seeing people falling down dead as is happening in other countries. There are countries where they are refusing to address it, or even they are addressing it, but the spread is so much that people are literally dying on the streets, and they are going around and picking them up. So this is the one thing that really is the silver lining that you can see in this.
As already known, COVID-19 has gravely affected businesses, as revealed by the latest business tracker of the Ghana Statistical Service. More than 100,000 firms, mostly in the hospitality industry, have had to close down either temporarily or permanently. From huge debt to employee layoffs, many of these affected businesses are yet to find their feet and bounce back into operations. Manuel Cranting, who has been talking to a restaurant manager, now reports about his experiences.
So at the Saba Dining Hall at the University of Ghana, operated by Maxi Catering Services and Restaurant, it's a contest between cobwebs and dust on who gets to rule over the entire space that has been left behind. As one of the most popular eateries on campus, it played host to thousands of students and university staff daily. With the arrival of COVID-19 and the closure of schools came the exit of its patrons. Gabriel Nyako is the administrator of the restaurant.
Most of the students around all the hostel comes here to eat because it's an old restaurant here. We first have our COVID in campus here, one person had it. So that's where the university has to send all the students away. So automatically we have to also shut our place down.
Just as everyone else, Gabriel did not see COVID-19 coming. So he stocked up as usual, only it will be the last in a long while.
Even for the chicken that we bought, some is about 35,000 that we have to pay bit by bit. Even the rice itself is around 12,000. The perishable goods, in a day we normally spend about 5,000 to 7,000 for those ones. Yeah, everything goes. This fridge that we see, everything was stocked.
Okay.
So as they come and they expire, then we start removing them. We have the person who's in charge of that.
Okay.
So the whole place was stocked with our staff. So as you can see, everything that was in has been thrown away. It's a rented place that we have been here for about 25 years. We've paid for almost half a year. Now we are talking to them. We are negotiating so that we pay bit by bit, so that as little that people also owns or brings in, then we just slash it out and spread it along.
But the woes of his company do not end there. It's a double jeopardy if you add employee demands. Gabriel tells me he's yet to access government stimulus package, even after applying a while ago.
We are yet to get a feedback. And there's a process that you have to go through. If you have an association, you can do that through the association. But we did it as individual.
As an individual.
Yes. So here alone, we have about 50 plus
In just this
yes, this place.
Okay.
And at the sports directorate, we have about 10.
Okay.
They are also gone. Then we have the one that's on contracts.
Okay.
When there's a program, that is around 20.
Okay.
So they are all 100 people.
Almost all of them.
So as we trying to start now, we just left with about less than 10 people now working with. So it would be very difficult for us to get and pay them. So we recently, I even wrote to the JRA to give us a space of time to pay our staff payees.
As government continues to ease the COVID-19 restrictions, Gabriel, like many others in the hospitality market, hopes for an opportunity to return to business ways.
Like for example, the Maths and Science that's supposed to become on June, I mean, that one also has been cancelled due to that. When this corporate event that takes 3 days, because University of Ghana is a big community, and we also benefit from those things. So if those one can be released or to a certain number, conferences to a certain number, it will help us. And also praying that maybe by September, students will be allowed to come back to school.
Well, we have to end the bulletin, but before we go, an economist with the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Augustine Fosu, is warning of a negative impact on Ghana's credit ratings from the international community. And this follows the suspension of the country's Fiscal Responsibility Act, which allows government to spend more than the targeted 5% of GDP. Professor Fosu believes government may have to do a lot of work to convince international partners about its commitment to fiscal prudence despite the suspension.
I think that so far Ghana has done quite well in terms of meeting the fiscal responsibility targets. Before COVID, we were actually moving quite close, around maybe 63%, and it was targeted to be met, actually. So COVID came along, and the target now cannot be met, no doubt about that. So as I indicated earlier, we're 11 percentage points above the target to 76% of GDP. So we have to justify to the rest of the world that indeed COVID-19 is responsible for this difference. Otherwise, we can have adverse effects on the economy in terms of the interest rate premium that we have to pay in the capital market. And that, of course, means that there will be less funds available for capital expenditures, for various programs, including free SHS, and so on. It is quite critical that whatever funds that are utilized to meet the difference, to make up the difference, that those funds are utilized efficiently.
All right, so we have to end the latest tidbits of the news, but we do have more news as we take a look at what stories are occupying the front and back pages of the newspapers we have in the studio. Myself and Gifty Andrew will be right here. Stay with us. We do have our YouTube channel, JoyNews TV, on YouTube. Make sure that you log on to YouTube, go search for JoyNews TV, and then subscribe, click those notification buttons. You get all those uploads, and well, it doesn't matter which device you're using, you always will get it. We've opened the gates now for Gifty and Rapia sipping some tea. You can see her now sipping the tea. Yeah, she's put the mark down as quickly as possible. Macho. That's saying.
Good morning, Roland.
Yeah, morning, Gifty. How was your weekend?
Good to see you, my Phil.
Ah, Minsosa.
My morning is good. Where's Mamavi, by the way?
Mamavi is a bit under the weather. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'll pray for her.
Please do. Please do. Divine healing. Divine healing. Yeah. Okay, so which newspapers are you doing? We have a couple. We always have big packs in the studio on Monday.
I do have a couple. I can start with the Ghanaian Times. I have the Ghanaian Times Daily Dispatch. I have BNFT. I think Daily Guide as well. So let me start with Ghanaian Times. There's a banner headline, allow 13 writer students to write exams, President's direct Ghana Education Service. And then it comes with a picture of Professor Kwesi Opoku Amankwa, who is Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Then beneath that, you have EPA begins nationwide audit of ammonium nitrate storage facilities today. Story is on page 17. I hope that we can have, some clearer understanding of what that means. Maybe an expert perspective. I don't know exactly what it means. And 2 trapped to death in Galamsey pit again. That story is on page 3 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. EC ends mop-up voter registration exercise on page 17. And so, yeah, that is the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. I'll quickly take you to the back page. I do have a bit of an insight as well, but let me see if I can just quickly go to the inside pages before we get to, right. So the center spread of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, disturbances in SHS, you have that story there. And then what the EPA is doing, unfortunately, I can't see too clearly from here. So I would have loved to read the first paragraph or so people can understand exactly what the story is. And Nanumba South District youth demand removal of DCE. Again, okay. Yeah, and then you have the details of that story about the EC ending the mop-up voter registration exercise. So let me quickly tell you what they have on the back page. Government WEF launched initiative to address SDGs financing gap. Very important story, I must say, now that donor funds are very hard to come by. An aviation minister expresses worry over encroachment on Sunyang Airport lands. Airport land security lands are encroached upon all over the place. So I think that'll be it for the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Let's take a look at the Daily Guide newspaper. Daily Guide newspaper comes with a very big picture of President Akufo-Addo and their banner headline, that is Nana's economy strong despite COVID-19. Stories by Akufo-Addo. And other stories on the front page. Rawlings called as criminals. That story is attributed to Ahoy, Professor Ahoy. See story on page 3. And 3 busted for 3.5 million energy ministry cash. I'm interested in that story. And they have a picture of somebody, they say he's on the run. Samuel Pencil is his name, he's on the run. But that story is on page 6. Maybe we can take a look at it if we have some time. Beneath the banner headline of the Daily Guide, NPP, NDC clash again, 1 dead again. Needlessly so. That story is on page 6. And today or never, COSUA or COSUA petitions government. See page 70, what? Page 16, I beg your pardon. And then 63 Ivorians arrested over voters' cards as the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. And the Daily Guide newspaper has some more stories. Let me quickly look for the center spread. Okay, so the center spread, Ms. Bell queries Nana for defending Nigel Gazy. Oh, okay. MPs back fiscal responsibility rules suspension. You know, that very interesting story in Parliament. And CMP saves 300 million under Kelvyn GVG. Oh, wow. Okay. And the NPA procures over 3,000 gas cylinders for Jomoro. Parliament backs tax waivers for Kumasi Airport, and Beyonce supports Kenyan business. Some other story in the center spread of the Daily Guide newspaper. I think this is the back page. Today or never, COSUA petitions government. Bring Kotoko glory days. Bring back Kotoko glory days. Juventus Saksari Pelo takes over, and yes. Pep praises Jesus. Hallelujah, somebody. Okay, so Roland, that's a Ghanaian Times and the Daily Guide newspaper. Maybe you want to take a bit of yours and then I'll continue with the BNFT and the Dispatch so people don't get tired of hearing me alone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're a good journalist. You know how to produce good content. So... Well, straight away, let's give you what's on the front page of the Daily Graphic. So it has on the front page, dismissed WASSCE candidate ministry. Ghana Education Service there to meet today is a directive from the president. My conclusion was that, well, the president has pardoned them. You know, sometimes we have to make it look good. So, but I think this intervention is the best intervention for these 14 students. They would have been distraught by now. What they did was pure indiscipline, but again, pardoning them I believe was the right way to go. So we have other stories also up there. Reject candidates who support violence. NCC tells voters. So good call. Yeah, you have any individual belonging to any of the political parties instigating violence who also tends to espouse violence. Make sure that you renounce those ideologies that they have. I'm not against free SHS. John Mahama clarified that while he made a visit up north. Guma Earl, managing director, 2 others busted for $3.5 million cloned check fraud. Now the story, when you read it's quite interesting. I'll tell you about it as well. But also on the back page of the paper, police to reward officers in deprived areas. They keep saying this. They do that same refrain, or say that for teachers and health workers. I don't know how much they're incentivized, but this is a good call. The implementation is always a problem for many of the times. Greater Accra Regional Hospital suspends 2 workers for administrative malpractice. We told you that on Prime on Sunday evening about how Anas Aremiyao's latest documentary, the BBC Investigative Team Africa Eye team already telling us about how PPEs were allegedly being sold indiscriminately, apparently belonging to a private individual on the premises of the hospital, and many other advantages being taken off within the period of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, let's look at our next issue. We're talking the Custodian newspaper. Audu Mahama is the managing editor of the Custodian. Good morning to you, Audu. The Custodian has on the front page, choose Rollins or Perfidios Ahoy. JJ loyalist fires NDC. And 2 CPP officers petition against Nanaya Jantwa. We also do have Akufo-Addo pleads for 14 sacked senior high school students. Parliament passes registration of Birth and Death Bill 2020. The Electoral Commission, though, gets legal backing for 2020 polls. There's processes to make sure that everything is on track as far as getting the right regulations in place for the election to take place. On the back page is full of sports. Kumasi Asante Kotoko needs strong leadership to implement policies, according to Gerald Motri. One time also was with the Kotoko Express, but also did some communication for the great club Kumasi Asante Kotoko. AstroTurf will solve infrastructure deficit in Upper East, Overload. And down there we have Countryman Sungu announces return to Inshira FM Sports in Kumasi. Also on the back page of the Custodian newspaper. Gifty, you can continue now.
Okay, dokes. So I'm going to do the BNFT. BNFT banner headline, lessen tax burden, businesses will recover quickly from COVID-19. That story is on page 3. It doesn't really say who is saying that. But on top of that, there is formalize and take advantage of the new normal. And that's the Vodafone CEO, Madam Ogonai, saying to MSMEs. Okay, and then there is a story about schools asked to get more attention from 150 million cap top-up funds, according to the NBSSI. That story is also on page 3. And cargo throughput drops 44% in first quarter. Okay, so this is it for the front page of the BNFT. Let's quickly take a look inside. Employment Minister moves to foil public sector strike over low SNIT pensions. And Common Platform has saved Ghana 1.5 billion in undeclared taxes by telcos. Okay, very interesting story. I think also other pages, page 3 has the details of the stories you found on the front page of the newspaper, and then it comes with a picture of all the people, Bunai, I think the NBSSI, and some other stakeholders as well in that. Okay, back page of BNFT, Stationery suppliers bemoan impact of COVID-19 as schools remain closed. Yeah, that's another sector that's taking a hit from the coronavirus pandemic. And GCB donates 100,000 CDs to Upper West Health Directorate. Then UCC Law School honors Goyle and Group CEO. Oh, those stories are what the BNFT is reporting. Let me take a look at the Dispatch newspaper. Banner headline, over 16 million voters registered. Yay! That's the Electoral Commission telling us. The story is on the back page. Amina Ahoy on the NDC and Rawlings in opposition 2001 to 2009. I think they're also serializing the Ahoy book. That story is on page 3. And what led to the friction between Rawlings and some ex-appointees? Story is on page 2. Comes with a picture of Mr. Rawlings and focus on Ghana's Second Republic. Down memory lane, some of the analysis that the paper has been running over the a couple of weeks or months, I think, some months now. So that's the front page of the Daily Dispatch. Quickly, let's take a look at what's inside. Harunata eulogizes John Mahama in forthcoming book. A lot of books will be flowing as we, slowly get towards the elections, I'm sure. And regions on the border had the most challenged cases, according to Electoral Commission, really pretty much to be expected. And what led to the friction between Rawlings and some ex-appointees, that story is there on this particular page, which is the page 2. Yes, page 2. An eligibility of 30,462 voters challenged. So that's the number of people that had their eligibility challenged. 61,000 voters with poor fingerprints to go through facial verification. Okay, it comes with a picture of Deputy Electoral Commissioner Bosman Asari. And then the other one that gives us the number of people whose eligibility was challenged comes with a picture of Jean Mensah, the AC boss herself. Finally, the back page of the Daily Dispatch. The analysis, you find it there towards 2020 election, over 60 million Ghanaians registered, details of that story there. And then no new voters register in the foreseeable future, according to the EC. Well, that depends. The way we've made the system, it depends on a whole lot of things. Okay, so Roland, this is it for the papers that I have, the Dispatch, the Daily Guide, BNFT, and of course, the Ghanaian Times newspaper.
Which ones will be your pick? For me, I readily will go for the pardon by the president, but also I wanted to make a bit of commentary and some discussions on the ammonium nitrate deposits, or the audit that was expected to be done by the Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay, help me, because I was dying to understand exactly what that story was about.
Well, I think it's closely related to the Lebanon incident, in which we have close to 150 people dying, and that blast shook the ground of Beirut, the capital of that country. And ammonium nitrate is known to be used in many other things. What we're popularly very much acquainted with is that it's used in the fertilizer, NPK fertilizer, so to speak, but it's also used in explosives. It's used for many other related activity when it comes to armory and all that.
So exactly what is the EPA going to do, and when does the story say?
Yeah, so mainly because it's sort of being used by licensed agencies of various sectors, and mainly in industry, apart from, let's say, the military or the defense sector. It means that it is possible that we have it in storage for many industries. Now, that will mean that they need to take proper stock of where they are. Are they in good safety conditions? That is not hazardous to either the vicinity or people living in that area. So you will find that we've had a number of incidents. And I remember about 2 years ago, there was a fire incident just around this industrial area that we have here at Kokomelmi, around Odo now, the industrial area just close to Kaneshi. And it's where we had one of those polythene manufacturing companies also having one of their inflammable chemicals going off. And so what the Lebanese didn't do is that they didn't take stock or track how these deposits of ammonium nitrate were kept. And even though there are varied information coming out, it just leads to one thing. We had deposits there, they had been stored, but this is the situation. And you know that, well, if we don't do it, we could have some big disasters. We don't know where they are, but I know that industry, apart from maybe the defense sector using it, that would be largely our military. It's the industrial sector that we need to take a look at.
Wow. Well, it's good that the EPA is doing it, I think. But then I would have been wondering, why did they have to take such a deadly explosion in another country for us to now remember? Unless it's something they do and we don't get the updates because, you know, it's not really your news kind of item. So unless there's something that the EPA periodically does and we don't get to hear about it, but we're just hearing about it now because of what has happened in Lebanon. Otherwise, I would have said, and I won't put it past us, we like doing that a lot. When we take an action, you know, it's more of a reaction after something else happens. So I would just be wondering, as a concerned Ghanaian, why would my EPA be doing this because a disaster happened in Lebanon? And I'm not saying it is bad. I'm just saying, I'm just asking questions and just, you know, sharing my thoughts.
Well, if you look at the EPA Act, they tend to do this periodic audit. Whether they do it for the storage for ammonium nitrate, that's another thing. Because just like all things that will tend to influence or affect the environment, you need certain approvals before you undertake those importations. And so the EPA actions and the permission to import ultimately will be given. But, you know, a lot of permits are given and sometimes the central agency itself does not know about it. And you don't have to look far. Look at our land sector and the way we tend to build indiscriminately. And you know that somebody has built indiscriminately somewhere but has the right sort of permits, you know. So it's the same thing that goes for some of the sectors that we have in our country. But we're hoping that this will be a learning period for all of us and we'll take stock. And these institutions will tend to do the work that they have to based on the act or the regulation that establishes them.
And I hope that they find something that actually needs to be worked on and something that will be protective enough. So you mentioned that you would have been interested in the pardoning of the 14 senior high school students. I'm wondering what your thoughts are. But I was just wondering when I saw the story about was it yesterday or so, that why. I mean, what does pardoning of these students mean? And why is it coming from the presidency? Why does it have to come from the presidency? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just asking questions once again. Why should it take the president to pardon students? They did something wrong. Yes, if they have to be punished, they should be punished, but they should still be allowed to write their exams. And I think that's where I think that's where the presidency comes in there, you know, with that pardoning. But I'm asking, what does pardoning mean? And I don't know if it is clear in the letter you have there scrolling right now. So it says, let me take a quick look. Even though acts of the indiscipline undertaken by these students are intolerable, acts which have led to their subsequent dismissal from school, President Akufo-Addo is of the firm view that dismissal alone is enough punishment and will serve as enough deterrent against future acts of indiscipline. Okay. So the president believes that everyone deserves a second chance in life and is thus hopeful that the students will be allowed by the GES to take their final examination as scheduled. Okay, so the point that the presidency makes is that the fact that you've been dismissed is fine, but you should be allowed to write your exams. And I believe that's also that's in the right direction. The punitive action should not end up jeopardizing their future. Their future at least should be our ultimate concern. But I'm wondering, did they have to come from the presidency? Couldn't the GES manage this, you know, and just decide that for the future of these kids, let them come and write it? Because when you bring the presidency into this, and you know, and I'm coming from a background where we have seen a lot of indiscipline on the part of students, where we have heard people link or call this particular batch of SHS writers the Akufo-Addo graduates. I'm coming from a background where there is some sort of political conversation around this particular subject, free SHS, and the need that government sees for it to be successful by all means, and people have read, the meaning into it, that this is an MPP project and it has to come out as successful. So I'm just coming from that angle, where people begin to ask questions and say, why does it have to take the presidency? I think it was really, we didn't need the president to do this. The GES could have easily given this a chance without necessarily bringing in the whole presidency into it. That's my thoughts. And again, what goes into the pardoning? So they'll just be allowed to write their exams and that's it. Nothing, there will be nothing. Yeah, help me out.
Well, the president did indicate, and if you look at one of the paragraphs, the concluding paragraphs, he did indicate that even just dismissing them in the first place was deterrent enough, was punishable enough. And he said that dismissal alone is enough punishment and will serve as enough deterrent against future acts of indiscipline. And I know what you think, because you're thinking that the Ghana Education Service as an independent institution should also be independent enough to take a decision to say that, look, this is what we initially said we'll do, but we think that based on calls, we can independently give them this pardon, and it shouldn't be coming from the presidency. But I think until the president's pardon came in, despite all the calls, the GES was going through with the processes, which also is not an affront to the law, its own regulations. So that would mean that they were taking this decision as an independent institution doing their work. Now, the president's intervention, maybe you can look at it from a father figure, chief executive of the land, or you can say that there's some political advantage to be taken from this, but it's also because if you look holistically at what the condemnation and commentary has been, the decision by the Ghana Education Service seems to...
That's what I'm saying. You don't need to...
Seems to have been accepted in total by even the general public. That will mean outright condemnation of these students if they are not able to come back to write their WASSCE the next year or so. And I think that's why the president...
I'm just saying that we've had enough of the government or presidency or government's involvement in this particular batch of SHS stuff, so this was a problem that could have been easily dealt with at the GES level. I'm saying that if I were the president, need to be involved at a very informal level, maybe place a call somewhere, but to issue a whole statement, I don't know. It's a bit too dramatic for me. And if I were president, I want to stay away from that and allow the system to go through with its own processes, if you get what I mean.
Well, I get you what you mean.
That's essentially my thoughts. That's what my thoughts will be.
Okay.
Roland, can you hear me? I hope I'm stable, my internet.
This morning you've been
that's my
you've been well,
but I wish these students I don't know if you can hear me, but I hope that they can take advantage of this second chance and to do the right thing. When you go to school, when we're going to school, we're told that go and learn, study and pass and come out. If you won't pass at all, don't go and misbehave and get other students to misbehave. So I wish them the best in their exams. And I hope that they really will live up to the expectations that Ghanaians have of them. There's a story you mentioned about police incentives, Roland, and it's a very crucial story. I've done a story where I went across, not across the country, but some parts of the country where the condition of the police stations, Roland, is so you see, I keep asking myself, a lot of us keep putting pressure on the police and saying the police is ineffective, they are not doing this. But the people who have employed them, are they taking care of them enough to be able to do their job? Are they giving them the things they need to protect us? I think that's a very big conversation we should have as a nation. And we have seen in Kafaba how quickly the police was able to arrest people involved in the killing of the 90-year-old woman. You see, if the police wants to work without, and there are no interferences, the police will do its job. But over the years, we haven't seen really a lot of independence for the police. We haven't seen proper resourcing of the police. And I think it's a story, it's something that I really wanted to comment on.
Well, thank you very much, Gifty, for those conclusive remarks.
Our time where the former IGP announced packages for police.
So that's where we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll bring you the latest in sports, and it's been a good review. Please make sure you catch all the latest on all our relevant social media handles.
Welcome to the sports segment here on the AM Show. My name is Bennett Itosu. Joy UCL, your UEFA Champions League reference point on Joy 99.7 FM on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The quarterfinal games, of course, will begin. Tonight, we also have UEFA Europa League matches to come, quarterfinal games, Manchester United involved. We'll tell you more about that. But of course, there is only one place to begin this morning's sports. Now, last Friday, Asante Kotoko officially unveiled Yaw Amponsah as their new CEO. The former Far Rangers president, among other things, spoke about how the big Kotoko brand has been underutilized. Well, for him, he's here to help make the Pokemon, which he believes is bigger than any political party in this country, great again.
Asante Kotoko for now is the biggest club in Ghana, no doubt. Unfortunately, same cannot be said of its content. I'm here to help the board and the entire Kotoko fraternity to match this superstructure with befitting contents. I dare say that Asante Kotoko is bigger than MPP and NDC. Asante Kotoko transcends geographical boundaries. Kotoko is a culture. The joy this club gives its teaming supporters cannot be matched by any political party in Ghana. I therefore plead with you to give me double of the support that you give your individual political parties of choice, and you will make Asante Kotoko great again.
So that was Asante Kotoko new CEO Yaw Amponsah. Already support is coming in for him. A former management member of the club, that's Dr. Kwame Banuakun, believes he's the best man for the job and has no doubt he will make the club great again.
I'm thanking the board on behalf of Yaw. It's not always that you get these big guys, older men, entrusting a big club like Kotoko in the hands of a young man. But the future belongs to the youth, and the board believes that with a young man at the helm of affairs, they will be able to achieve the targets that they are setting for the club.
So Dr. Kwame Banuakun, a former management member of Asante Kotoko, speaking on the new CEO, Yaw Amponsah. And over the weekend, on Friday, this was on Friday in Kumasi, and on that Friday night, we had some UEFA Champions League matches. Of course, a run of 16 games. Juventus were at home to Lyon. They lost that game by 2 goals to... They actually won by 2 goals to 1. Despite that win, still couldn't make the quarterfinals. So Cristiano Ronaldo is out of the competition, and right after the following day, their manager Mauricio Sarri was sacked as manager of the club. Manchester City, Pep Guardiola's quest of winning this year's UEFA Champions League is on. His team beat Real Madrid at home to reach the quarterfinals of the competition. Manchester City are through to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League, same as Lyon. So the two teams will meet in the quarterfinals. Well, Barca also played host to Napoli at the Camp Nou and was a Lionel Messi show as they also won to progress to the quarterfinals. Will be on your screen, and there you go. On Wednesday, we'll have Atalanta will come up against Paris Saint-Germain. Remember, all games will be played in Portugal, that's in Lisbon. And then on Thursday will be Leipzig from Germany. They're up against Atletico Madrid. There's a story on Atletico Madrid that I'll tell you pretty shortly. Also, we'll have Barcelona, Bayern Munich, the big one, of course, in this run of the competition. And then on 15th of August, that's on Saturday, we'll have Manchester City. They will play Lyon. So the UEFA Europa League fixtures on your screen, and these are matches to expect We have 2 games tonight. Inter Milan, they are up against Bayer Leverkusen of Germany. And then Shakhtar Donetsk. Okay, so the matches actually for tonight, we'll have Manchester United FC Copenhagen. Yes, so Manchester United FC Copenhagen, and then Inter Milan, Bayer Leverkusen. And then on Tuesday, Shakhtar Donetsk will come up against Basel, as well as Wolverhampton Wanderers will play Sevilla. So those are matches to expect. The 2 matches, that's the Manchester United game, Copenhagen, and then we'll have Inter Milan, Bayer Leverkusen. And talk of the UEFA Champions League, there's a story coming from Thomas Partey's Atletico Madrid. Well, 2 of their players have tested positive for coronavirus. They've been made to self-isolate. And what it means is that those 2 players who they've not given their names will not be part of the team that is traveling to Lisbon for their quarter-final game against Leipzig of Germany. We'll follow that and bring you more in our subsequent sports bulletins. But that's how we end sports this morning here on the show. I'm Benedict Osu. Thanks so much for your company. The show continues with Roland after this short break. Don't go away.
Well, the voters register has ended, but we had a great conversation with the 2 national youth organizers of Ghana's 2 biggest parties, the MPP and the NDC. We'll bring you that conversation. Hello, thank you for joining me. We're talking politics, and it's not just any mean politics. I'm talking about politics within the 2 main political parties of our republic, the MPP and the NDC. I have with me 2 young people. They're young because they fall in the demographic, but more so, they represent the young people of their political parties. I'm talking about Henry Nanabuache. He is a national youth organizer of the MPP. How are you, Henry?
Hi, Roland, I'm okay.
Great. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Nice.
You look good.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's looking good. It's not bad. And alongside him, we have his counterpart in the NDC, George Opare-Addo. He is also the youth organizer for the NDC. And George, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Roland. Good morning to you too.
Yeah, good morning. And it was not difficult getting the 2 of you. Very much also in line and in tune with what relationship we've built over the period. But look, we've come to just a time, and I first would have to go to you, Nana B, as we all always call you. We've just ended the registration period, and the Electoral Commission says that it has in its database in excess of some 16 million people registered. And it says that is a justification that, well, the register of the old was bloated after all. What do you say to that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Roland, and then also good morning to my good friend and brother, Opare-Addo. Yes, yesterday I think I read some publication from the Electoral Commission, and earlier on they had even targeted 14 million, and it appears that they have exceeded their target. For me, which is a good thing. I mean, it clearly shows that Ghanaians really came out to register, but don't forget that they have also set up a committee, and the committee is supposed to clean up the register. I mean, the committee's work or their mandate is to check multiple registrations here and there, and people who are not supposed to be on the register, but they found their names on the register and all of that. So for me, I'm happy with the registration. I followed it right from day 1 up to the 36th day. And I know today they are resting, tomorrow they have a mop-up exercise to do, but not at the various registration centers. In all, I think we had more than 6,500 registration centers. And tomorrow they will be having the mop-up exercise at the various district offices. So I'm happy with the exercise so far, especially given the period we find ourselves. All of us displayed a lot of anxiety as to how it was going to be carried out because of COVID-19, and they came out to assure, the Electoral Commission came out to assure us that they put in place, the protocols. They've bought quite a number of PPEs, and indeed, every registration center I visited, I noticed that they had their own Veronica bucket. They also had the Ghana Health Service personnel checking temperature. They had sanitizers, and when they started you could see that a lot of people just massed up at the registration centers. And then they came up with this strategy of implementing the queue management system, which was a very good thing. So it minimized the level of people massing up at the various registration centers, because obviously they also had to make sure that they adhere to the social distancing protocols. So largely, I would say that it's been quite successful. We've had some few challenges. I know you're going to come there, but largely 6,500 registration centers has been very successful. Yesterday was the last day, 2 days for mop-up, and then we move on. So I'm happy with the exercise so far.
Well, and same questions to you, what would you say?
Before I say anything, let me say good morning to your viewers and say that the Electoral Commission has taken all of us on a wild goose chase. Why do I say that? Before the beginning of this exercise, he said 14 million. Just this afternoon, per their press briefing, they were anticipating to register 15 million. The old register had in excess of over 16 million. Today, they are telling us they've registered 16.6 million. 3 things I picked from this whole exercise. 1, the Electoral Commission has not been honest with the good people of this country, because the old register was updated in 2019, and at the last check in 2019, the last time they used that register was on the 17th of December, if I'm not mistaken, for the district assembly elections. We had 16.6 million people. Between a year, it's less than a year, you don't expect any phenomenal increases in numbers. So 1, the old register was not bloated as they made us to believe. That is why I said they've been dishonest to the people of Ghana. 2, they promised the good people of this country that they were going to use facial verification. I don't know when that is going to happen, because when we went around the registration center, there was nothing about
But they took your picture.
Yes, but in the old register, your picture was equally taken.
Yeah, but the facial verification uses pictures.
Yes, and I'm saying by the old one, your pictures were equally taken. Facial verification is a form of identification when you're doing biometrics. What we know that facial verification is inorganic. It is your fingerprints that are organic. Fingerprints are about 80 to 90% accurate. Facial verification, and the argument has been, is not even up to 70% accurate. No. One of the key arguments the Electoral Commission espoused in the run-up to this new register was that it was going to do facial verification. I am telling you that even the LI that went before Parliament, facial verification is not part. So they lied to the good people of this country. 2, the issue about the register being bloated. If, as of today, we've registered 16.6 million people, and mind you, it is in the midst of a pandemic. I know a lot of people who refused to go and register because they said they were not going to risk it.
Because they didn't want to risk their life.
Yes, they didn't want to risk their life, and rightly so. In the middle of a pandemic, you don't expect people to go out there and register. So that alone tells you that the register is not bloated. 3 days ago on one of the TV stations, the EC today is running away from the argument they espoused that the register was bloated. Because if you have 16 million people today registering, and you're going to do a mop-up for 2 days, Saturday, Sunday, clearly we'll be exceeding with this mop-up. And mind you, our borders have been closed. A lot of Ghanaians are also outside this jurisdiction who have not been able to come home. And mind you, in the old register, people traveled, our brothers in the diaspora, they always traveled and came back home to register. So clearly that argument of a bloated register has fallen flat in the policeman's
You've been very systematic and very sequential in how you're raising the point.
The other argument is that when you spend 200 million on a system, on this whole new biometric system, and today you are telling us that you set up a new committee to, 1, interrogate and edit the register because you believe that there are some people who are not supposed to be on the register. Then what the Electoral Commission is telling us today, that the argument that was espoused by the political parties that were against the register, that there were other innovative ways of cleaning the register without us not necessarily resorting to a new register, was valid and tenable. The reason, because they are telling us that they are setting up a committee.
Well, you wanted the system to be networked?
No. What I'm saying is that the old register could have been cleaned, because they are going to clean the register again, a register that has just been compiled. They are telling us that they set up a committee to clean it.
Well, you're going to clean it because the Electoral Commission says that each of these BVRs, as they have it, are independent of each other. They don't talk to each other. And logically, once that is the case, you have to take the data on each of them and you compare to others. So if there are 2 names or 3 names or the same name that are multiplied in the database, then they have to be struck out. So
the same arguments, what the CSOs were saying, what the political parties were saying, that if you believe the register is bloated, you don't need a new register. You should find innovative ways of cleaning it up. It is the same job this committee is going to do. That is what I'm saying. The Electoral Commission has not been entirely honest with us. The other issue with the challenges, you realize that in the first 4 days, the Electoral Commission itself was not too sure whether people were going to turn up to register. So they allowed a lot of people massing up at polling stations. And you realize that in the first phase, social distancing was absent from most of the registration centers. If they could manage, this queue management Henry is talking about, if they could have done the queue management from the beginning, why didn't they start it? It was very deliberate on the part of the Electoral Commission, because they wanted people. They created a situation of panic, so that a lot of people will rush to the polling stations and register, because they themselves were not sure how Ghanaians were going to go out there in a pandemic and register. And that is how come they allowed that to happen. But I can say that most of our numbers, most of the increases in our numbers with this COVID are as a result of some of the things that happened during the first and second phases of the registration.
But look, the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, they've been blighted by issues of people being beat up, you know, the contestation of people's nationality, and also where they stayed, whether they're eligible to be in a database for this register at a particular area. And it looks like the military and other security personnel were used extensively to perhaps hinder, based on what the NDC had been raising over the period. Let me pose that to you, Nanabi.
Roland, before I even respond to that, let me say that I think as a youth leader of a opposition party, his argument is quite, has come in a little too late. I mean, these are the same arguments they raised. They have raised massive resistance towards the compilation of the new registration right from day one, when the Electoral Commission announced it. In fact, they even created a group to champion this cause. They had almost about 3, wasted some resources on 3 demonstrations or so, and then they did so many things, right? But the Electoral Commission is an independent body, and you see, we should not limit the fact that the Electoral Commission, as part of their reasons to compile a new register, made mention of how the register is bloated as the main reason. Because you see, I have the press conference here, and this is graphic online. New voters register, new BVM system coming. Now, this is the main reason why the Electoral Commission embarked on the Electoral Commission has announced to procure new biometric voter management system, as well as to compile a new voters register for 2020 elections. The Commission says that it took the decision to procure the new biometric voter management system on the advice of its IT team and external consultant, to the effect that it would be prudent to acquire a new system rather than to refurbish the current system. And they made a lot of...
So you're saying this is late in the day?
I mean,
but they made
very late.
They made several arguments, and it's not only the political party. We have Imani and the rest of civil society who
they have their own point. What I'm trying to say is that the Electoral Commission is an independent body. They did this based on some consultation with their IT experts, and they came out to tell us the reasons why they are doing it. Some were even financial considerations, that it was even going to cost the country so much if they intended at the point to refurbish the BVMs, right? They also made mention of the operational cost. They also made mention of how obsolete the previous biometric system was. And that is the main reason why they embarked on this exercise. So I'm surprised why my brother would just want to dwell on the fact that it was bloated and that it's been defeated. No, the fact is that, look, obviously annually we have a population
growth of around 2.1, 2.5. That's the estimation.
That's the estimation, right? So clearly, if we had the 16.1 or so in 2019, And when we talk about how bloated the register is, obviously it will come to a certain small percentage. So it was only a small fraction of the reasons the Electoral Commission gave.
So are you saying that the Electoral Commission based its argument to throw away whatever concern that have been raised by either the NDC and the rest of the minor political parties and the rest of civil society, numbering 15, 16, just because we had some excess, a little excess of the normal numbers we're seeing now in the register,
what I'm
in the old register?
What I'm trying to say is that they gave a number of reasons.
Among them?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason my brother is giving as to the register being bloated was just a small fraction of it. They spoke about how the machine is obsolete, how it is old, they cannot use, how even refurbishing it is going to cost us so much. So they gave a number of reasons, and I was there at that park when they were doing their presentation to all of us. So yes, I mean, civil society, we respect your views, we respect your research, whatever you've done, that is fine. I mean, political parties, we also, and indeed, although I said they wasted a lot of money on these demonstrations, it is their constitutional right. So they embarked on those. But for me, it was a waste of money. Because the Electoral Commission is an independent body, and then they have said that considerably, right, they've gone into all of these things, and then they came out to do a new, so it is late in the day. They finished with the registration. It was successful. You went round, you saw it. Fine, you could have one or two reasons why you think that this could have been done this way. But that is, okay, for me, I'm happy. Because you see, a lot of people actually came out to register. He's saying that some people did not register because of COVID-19. Look, a lot of people also decided not to register in the previous elections, in the previous registration because of one or two reasons. But given the numbers we have now, and especially even in Greater Accra here, because, Roland, if you consider the COVID-19 cases, right, Greater Accra is #1 epicenter. Then you go to Ashanti region. Greater Accra, to speak, we have in excess of about 3.4, 3.5 million people registering. And that is just about 400,000 to 500,000 more than the 2019 register, the number recorded by Greater Accra. So indeed, people came out massively to register. And this clearly shows that, yes, indeed, they wanted a new register. Because the NDC said they should not come out to register. The NDC said people should stay in their homes. The NDC, even at the point, I mean, through their all trances, try to scare people around. Don't come to register, there will be blood and all of that. Right? In Ashanti region, right, we are hitting almost about 3 million or so people registering. So, Roland, the fact of the matter is that, yes, we all made our arguments. There were political parties, about 18 of them. About 14 of them said that they wanted new register. 4 said they didn't want it. That is NDC and their cohorts, right? So, Roland, we have moved from that.
So we've moved from the argument.
Yes,
okay.
it's been a successful exercise. I commend the Electoral Commission for such work. There are workers all over. There are assistants, registration officers, registration assistants, and all of that. So
now let me just run something by you, by Kofi Bento. You know, Kofi Bento is with Imani Africa.
Exactly.
And this is what he said. A biometric system is almost useless if it is not linked with the automatic deletion of duplicates. What was the $100 million for? A dumb system?
Kofi Bento obviously has been a fierce critic of the Electoral Commission, especially when they announced that they were going to do a new voters register. They have always, in fact, they even went to court and they were thrown out.
You are saying he's already conflicted?
No, what I'm saying is that Kofi Bento himself, he's already, unleashed a lot of attacks on the Electoral Commission, and he said all manner of things. I don't have any problem with that. But some of these things, I mean, the Electoral Commission probably will come out to answer them. I'm not in a position to answer these things. What I know is, as a political party, we engaged in the compilation of the new registration exercise. We sent our agents round, we went round monitoring, it was successful. Whatever criticism he has, he can direct it to the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission, they have IT experts to come and answer these things. For me, it is late in the day for some of these things. Look, we are moving on. We have 4 months to elections. Our main preoccupation, our focus, is to make sure that we campaign and retain Nana Danko Akufo-Addo as the president, and Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as the vice president. These things were criticisms raised some time ago, and as I said, he's been a fierce critic of the Electoral Commission. He's made so many comments. He's attacked Electoral Commission with so many. Some of them the Electoral Commission came out to dispute. So I think that I would have to respect his comment on that. But for me, the exercise was fruitful. It was well conducted, and I commend the Electoral Commission for such a good work.
One of the notable things that the NDC did within the period is to organize a number of press conferences highlighting with pictures, sometimes even with videos, instances in which some border areas that they thought that were originally strongholds or still are strongholds, people being prevented by security forces or personnel from voting, even though that has been disputed widely by the military.
Roland, when you watch a video and you see people in military uniform going around registration centers and asking people to leave queues, and then the military comes out to dispute, what are they disputing? That it didn't happen, or the videos we saw, we went out there and gave the people the uniforms to wear. If the military is disputing those actions that were taken, what we expect the military to do is to hold those people who went out there responsible and say that we did not ask you to go and do this. Well, is it also not true that there were military presence in Volta region? Is it also not true that the district chief executive of Ketu South was going around registration centers harassing people? So what were they disputing? But you see, Roland, all that we said was things that played right before our very eyes. We said that the Electoral Commission was undertaking this exercise because the NPP and Nana Addo Dankwa wanted a new register. The reasons are very simple. One, to suppress votes in the NDC strongholds. Two, to do a new register so that they will get their minors registered in their strongholds. Three, to do this new register, not because, one, the register is bloated. Two, not because the equipments were obsolete, because the manufacturers of the first equipments came out to tell us that that argument that was being exposed by the Electoral Commission was lame and not true. So they went out there to do this because of what they wanted to achieve. And the simple thing was voter suppression.
That's better about minors. You had party representatives all over the registration centers. How do you make those conclusions?
How do we make those conclusions? Because it's happened. It is a clear case of sending the military to intimidate people and force our agents out. The number of violence that has been recorded during this exercise. And you rightly said, we held various press conferences and we put out the facts. Everything we put out there, they've only come to say it is not true, but they've not come out with alternative facts. Until they come out with alternative facts and tell us that these videos we are seeing are not real, and that it's somebody else who has put together and pieced these videos together and they are fake. They've not been able to do that. Is it not true that how Akufo went to a polling station and guys following her went shooting? Is it not true that a young man called Salas was murdered in Banda? Is it not true that people in Banda, Joe Dankwa, is going around harassing people and saying that they will not allow people to register? Is it also not true that the military personnel are all over in Banda, stopping people who have lived there from 1919?
Well, the two parties signed almost like a treaty or a pact.
You see, that was shameful on the part of the military. That statement, yes, that statement that was put out by the spokesperson for the military.
Have you seen the two
I have been a chief executive officer before. I have headed NewsSec before. It is not part of our electoral processes. Never has it ever been part. That during a registration process, you find the military going around and monitoring registration.
But as a former head of MUSEC, do you agree that when there's insecurity within your jurisdiction, it is your responsibility to make sure that you bring everything together?
It is. But you see, you cannot say, and Anabuachi here knows that, if not for political parties. You know why during the General Assembly elections there is low participation? Because the parties are not actively involved. Most of the people, because for instance, there may be a polling station here in Legon that serves the whole university community. One polling station. In most of the rural areas, you have one polling station serving about 4 or 5 villages. So if people don't go around with vehicles to bring people to the polling stations, the people will not come on their own because it is going to cost them money to board vehicles and come and register. They will not come. So usually political parties from both sides go around and mobilize people. And you see, when you are mobilizing the people, they don't even know which party they will vote for. Because until he enters the ballot box that day, on his way to the polling station, a lot of things could happen and his mind can.
But you know your stronghold is your stronghold.
Certainly you know your stronghold. But how is we lost elections in our strongholds before? The NDC lost Upper Manya, Krobo in the 2016 elections. It's a stronghold of the NDC. So there are no guarantees, there are no assurances that the people there are going to vote for you. What we are saying is that Akufo-Addo has superintended over this violence and this lawlessness. We saw what happened in Ayawaso West Wugon. And we saw the reports from the Short Committee, if President Akufo-Addo had punished anybody from that report, as was recommended, if that had happened,
but that's a white paper. You do agree that there's a white paper?
No, I agree that it's a but
if you look at the Constitution gives a mandate for that white paper to be issued.
Is it Roland?
Both of you are legal practitioners,
yes,
so you know.
Roland. You see, we agree, we understand that a white paper can be issued. If anybody on that list was NDC, if what happened in Ayawaso West Wugon, if any of those who fomented the trouble was NDC, I can assure you that that white paper would have been issued, but it would not have covered everybody. People from the NDC side would have been punished. He himself, President Akufo-Addo, cannot exonerate himself of the violence that has engulfed this nation. Because right from the word go, ever since he became president, at the Flagstaff House, seat of government, on the 9th of January 2017, ASP Nankabus was assaulted by this same vigilante voice. Up to date, nobody was punished. We saw it in Ashanti region. We saw the Attorney General enter in Olifo Square. We saw a judge run from her courtroom, and nobody was punished. It only emboldened people.
So you're saying you have a plethora of events to enable you draw this conclusion.
Exactly. And Ayawaso crowned it all. If anybody was punished in Ayawaso, what he's done is he's paid lip service to the good people of this country. And that is how come during this registration exercise, we've seen so much violence ongoing, and it's still ongoing. And I can assure you,
sporadic.
And you see,
if you compare the number of polling stations and the registration centers and the areas,
when a sitting member of parliament goes to a polling station and draws a gun and fires into the air, these are not events we should take lightly.
But the point that while you react to this, the two of you, and I'm talking about you, the two parties, we only will have peace in Ghana if there's peace between you two. And that's a reality.
Yes. If there's peace between the NDC and NPP,
yes.
Or Nana Boakye and Offinso.
No. The NDC and the NPP. Yes, sir.
I find the submissions of Offinso very, very disingenuous.
Which one?
I mean, all the things he said, because you see...
Did you see the videos?
I'm coming. I'll come to that. First of all, as I said, he said, yes, as I said, the Electoral Commission designated more than 6,500 registration centers. And the only places we saw the presence of military were 2 constituencies.
That's not true.
Oh.
That's not true.
I'm coming.
That's not true. Maybe you don't have the facts. Let me help.
Hold on.
Because you deployed them, you don't know where you even deployed your
military. Today he's been very...
yeah.
Oh, today he's been... Yeah.
You see, it was in Banda, and Banda, we all know what happened there. There were some clashes, and, you know, when we have such registration, obviously, you know, interests are heightened, and if you are not careful, you have some places where it will just degenerate into wild violence. So that can happen, and unfortunately one person lost his life. Now, the Regional Security Coordinating Council met all political parties. And in that meeting, they had a joint security operation team involving the military, immigration, police, and the national security.
And this meeting is precipitated by what
happened? What happened in Banda? Right, good. And then you also have some deployment. I mean, just few deployment to Kaswa because of some of the issues that were coming from there. Look, in other places, Mr. John Dramani Mahama came out with such wild allegations, saying that Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo has ordered the military and they've deployed some men to the border country. And in fact, he specifically limited that deployment to the Volta region. In fact, it was such a bizarre situation for even the Ministry of Defense to come out to say that and to even give details as to their deployment. For me, it was, people even, some security experts said it was even a security breach. Because we had actually closed our borders, and it was because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And there were some few cases recorded in another region that were brought in from Burkina Faso. In fact, some of them even escaped, and later on, we captured them. And then in Volta region, the first 2 cases were brought in from Togo. So as part of the measures, and it was such an international security measure taken by every country, they closed their borders.
So basically, they were just deployed, going by what the defense minister has reiterated, to make sure that we don't let in would-be possibly COVID-19 infected people.
Exactly. So even the Ministry of Defense came out with the number of deployment in 8 regions. They mentioned all in 8 regions. But even Mr. John Mahama even limited that to Volta region, inciting tribal politics, inciting people as one, persons against each other, right? So that in itself was false. And the video moving around, it appears that the NDC...
There's not one video, there's several videos of the military, even stopping commercial vehicles, asking people to show their ID card on routes. Which
Roland, how is it possible that we have a pact, as you mentioned, we have an agreement, as you mentioned, that nobody should bus people from places, and then General Mosquito goes and then he hires...
You're talking about the Banda situation?
Yeah, the Banda situation. He hires this Kia truck. No, I'm coming. He hired this Kia truck, arrange people in it as if they would not even have, lack of social distancing protocols, people packed on Kia trucks, and then when they were asked, they said they are going to register. Can you imagine? Later on, they gave a reason that, some people are at the other side of the river, and then they had wanted to buy some food, buy some medicine, and other stuff, which was just an afterthought. So clearly there was a pact, there was an agreement. Don't bus people there. And it was because of the earlier security breaches. Right? So that was an arrangement between the two political parties. So, this issue you are talking about was just limited to Banda and then Kaswa. And let me tell you, let me say this too as well. He said that we had a certain strategy to stop people in their strongholds from registering. Look, I have the figures here. Probably he's not paid attention to the figures, or maybe he's not been following. Look, in Volta region, as at 2 days ago, as at day 35, they had registered 920,309. And as at the last 2019, they had registered 999,000. So minus even the last 2 days, they had 920,000. And in OT region, it was 387,000. They had actually exceeded 360,000. So people were registering. Nobody prevented a legitimate person in queue. Nobody. So I'm surprised as to how they want to, bring so many things into this through.
You think they are just mere allegations?
Oh, mere allegations.
Despite the videos ongoing.
That is what I'm saying in the video. Did you see the military men physically preventing people from registering?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. No, please. All you said was that the policemen were asking people. Yes.
I'm telling you after I'll show you.
Show me. Because I have not seen any video on social media where the military physically. What I saw was General Mosquito leading people packed on Kia trucks, and then the military were preventing them because that action was born out of a pact, an agreement between the political parties.
Nanabi, let me ask you a question. If you have the military, going by our history, standing in front of anybody, won't it evoke any fear?
No.
So you don't necessarily need the military to physically assault somebody or prevent anybody for you to know that there's some level of intimidation being employed.
We should not create the impression as though this situation was widespread and it was everywhere. We have 16 regions in Ghana. As I mentioned, we have over 6,500 registration centers. And this situation was only prevalent on just about two constituencies.
Even one constituency is not.
No, so don't blow it out of proportion. No, please. And it is because of a certain. No, it is because of a certain security breach. It was because of a certain occurrences that happened. So clearly, are you saying that because of the clashes between the MPP and the NDC that resulted in the death of one person, the security agency should throw their hands in despair? They should not come into act? It is the responsibility of the Regional Security Coordinating Council to come in. They met both political parties and there was an agreement. So why is it that one person is sticking to the agreement, the other person decides to breach it, with the General Secretary of the NDC going to pick people in pickups and in Kia trucks, arranging them in such a way you ask them they are coming to register? What kind of...
Now, I want us to transition for the next 5 to 7 minutes as we conclude this discussion into 2 areas. There seems to be a certain refrain. Concerns being raised by the NDC that its supporters, or areas where it usually would get votes, tribes or people of certain ethnic origins from those areas were being discriminated against within the process of the registration. The MPP, and even again reiterated by Nana B, that it's a refrain of tribal, he uses the word bigotry. What do you say to that?
You see, Roland, the NPP can pretend and choose to live in their own world and play it out that nothing of that nature happened. But it is true that even in Ashanti region, at some constituencies, some polling stations, people from Volta region and people abroad from the northern regions were being prevented from registering. It is also true, and you see, when Anabi speaks like this and he talks about somebody being disingenuous, the people who are watching us this morning will make their own judgment, because they've also seen, they live in this country, they've heard, they've seen, and they've listened to other politicians speak. It is also true that in a run-up to this registration exercise, out of the blue, for the first time in the history of this country, military men were deployed on almost all our border towns. Majority of these border towns vote for the NDC. When you talk about prevention of COVID, when did COVID come into Ghana? Ghana has more COVID cases than all our neighboring countries. So if anybody should be closing its border with the military, it is not Ghana. It is the other countries that should be scared of Ghanaians entering their country, because there are more cases of COVID in Ghana than any of these countries out there.
How about us also closing our borders so that we don't export?
So rightly so. But when you are closing your borders, you use the military to close your borders.
Immigration service.
Exactly. So when you deploy the military with these jungle bikes, and we saw the videos of the military and how even students, you know, there are people who lived, you know how the border towns behave. They have their farms across.
Very seamless.
Certainly. We saw the brutalities that were meted out to such individuals. There was this young schoolgirl who was beaten by the military. These videos did not come from Jupiter.
So that is a lie. That was a video. That was a video not even related to this particular society. It was a video released by the NDC. I mean,
how was it released by the NDC?
Yeah, no, it's been
how was it?
These videos
were dramatized.
How was it released?
Yes, in fact, there was even an image.
How was it released by the NDC?
That image was even.
When you're talking about certain rights,
you finish.
You understand? Apart from that,
you nearly raised his activation mode.
No, that is who he is. So I'm not surprised.
No, but you came in as well. You're just a friendly fire.
Friendly fire. Yeah. I don't need that from you.
Okay.
You see, we saw our parliamentary candidate for the Ketu South constituency, Jifra Gomashi, out there fighting and making sure the right things were done. Fighting, not fighting fiscally, but then making sure that people were given the right register. We saw your chief executive for Ketu South going around polling stations and asking people whether they were NDC or whether they were Ghanaians. Meanwhile, there is a process for challenging anybody's registration. They chose not to use those systems. So the NDC was not being tribalistic. We're only telling Ghanaians and we're only putting out what the real issues were. What we need in this country is not the leadership of President Akufo-Addo and how he's treated his fellow citizens of this country. What we expected President Akufo-Addo to do was to speak out against some of these things that were happening. That, you know, I am the president of Ghana. I'm not the president for only NPP faithfuls. And you see, when somebody registers, and so the person votes, you are not sure who he's going to vote for. But when you are preventing citizens who have voted in Ghana from 1992, and we've had a lot of bizarre incidences of people who have lived in communities. We saw a chief in Banda saying that they've lived here with these people from 1919.
He's not chief.
Whatever you choose to call it. That's why you people, you are noted for denigrating chief.
No, he's not chief. The Banda Hinko chief, he's not spoken on this matter. In fact, he has rather cooperated very well with the security agencies.
So we've had chiefs, even in the Volta region, we had chiefs speak out when the military were deployed out there. And we've seen what has happened in this country. Why on earth and in which civilized democracy would Hannah Yaw Amponsah still be walking around?
The police are investigating the matter.
Let Judge Opariado go to a polling station and fire a gun.
You want to try?
No.
Okay.
Because you see, when you really did fire a gun, you'll be arrested that same day. We've seen how they've used the military against political.
I think you have exhausted your time.
Why? I was the one who kills the time. You see his lifestyle.
No, is he number one? How Amponsah, for me, from what I've done, my just initial checks, obviously, as a parliamentarian, what she told me was that she gave that warning shot because she was under attack.
We were attacked.
Oh, please.
Another blatant lie.
And as you rightly put, the police is investigating it. So that's it. Look, under NDC, Mr. Collins Dada, his brother, up to now, we have not even seen him. I'm told that they've taken him out of the country. The man said, oh, please.
After 4 years, he's not been able to arrest.
No, because he's not in the country. We have so mounted the search for him. The man said he's been killing people for the past 24 years.
Did you find any dead bodies?
Oh, please, I beg you. Stop this rude interjection. Okay. Yes. Right. So, I mean, we shouldn't even go there. Right. But what is important is, you see, this divisive, this tribal sentiment, this backward and awful politics being played by the NDC. Very unfortunate. And you see, it is coming from a former president of this country. And indeed, when it was, sometimes I'm not really surprised. Mr. John Dramani Mahama. Right? Even in 2016, when we were campaigning, he said, oh, he's from the northern part of Ghana, so they should vote for him. You see, that is what they tried to do.
Akufo-Addo said,
oh, please.
Yeah, come for.
He mentioned Jifa Gomoshi and then Ketusa. As we speak, is he aware that even 2 days ago, they had registered almost about 130,000 people who prevented who from registering? They are registering in their numbers. And in 2019,
that's finished.
Yes, in 2019, they had almost about 149,000 on the register. So it means they are registering. Nobody.
So you're saying we're crying over spilled milk?
No, he, not you. He. Don't try to tie up.
No. I'm talking about generally what the conversation.
Because you see, and once we have closed our borders, there was a joint. You know what? We have almost about just some few approved routes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, few. But
many of them are unapproved.
Many of them. Over
so that's why the military and the...
That is why they had this joint security operations team, right, handling this closure of the borders. And I'm surprised my brother is saying this. Look, I am not happy with some of these elections-related violence. Roland, I will say that for me and then the NDC, and I always speak against it, but for me, largely, this election has been very successful, and we should. And finally, he is talking about the military, he's talking about the police. Look, Sami Jemfi, their communication director, said that when the tenure of the security forces, military, police, is co-terminus with that of President Akufo-Addo, and the day President Akufo-Addo exits office, these military men, policemen should also count themselves out of office. Very dangerous.
Don't put him out of context.
Very dangerous.
That is not what he said. So don't put him out of context.
In fact, that is even more dangerous. That is a clear, action of undermining the security forces. And former President Mahama, who has been the commander-in-chief of Ghana Armed Forces before, who's been president before, he has not even come out to condemn this action. Very, very, very bad. Right? So, Roland, finally, I'm happy with the Electoral Commission. We are also happy. And I know for these elections, they have already lost already. If you consider the submissions of Akufo-Addo, clearly you can see that they don't have any hope. They've lost the election.
We have to wrap up. I have to thank the two of you. But there's a last question, and I pose that to you. Oh, no. Just forget about this one. Let's talk about, look, right now the compilation has been done. We have August, September, October, November, and then we have 7 days of December. This electioneering, how do you think we have to conduct it? Just in 2 minutes. 2 minutes, I'm timing.
Before I respond to that, let me correct an impression he just created. No, he spoke an untruth, and that must be correct.
Which one?
About Sami Jemfi.
The video was out there.
Because you chose to alter. You chose to alter.
Nobody altered.
You chose to alter the video.
The man said,
you chose to alter the video. What he said, he spoke at length. So when you piece pieces together and then
he was clear
to play,
nobody chose his language for him.
What he said, and in context, what he said was that if military officers carry themselves like that, and then do not
like
right,
what?
But we see some of the things some military officers have done. If they go ahead and do that, then they should know that they are tying their aprons. They are tying their aprons to that.
You have said that.
They are tying their aprons to that of the president, because it means that they are serving a president and they are not serving God.
You know something? Let me tell you something. The NDC's candidate for WAEC, Roland. The NDC's candidate for WAEC.
You serve a country.
He was actually the executive secretary
to an
IGP under the MPP era. You know what happened?
You serve a president.
He's not a parliamentary candidate for the NDC.
You serve a country, you don't serve a president. So you are not at the ways and caprices of the president. That's what you're trying to do. So
you're justifying this?
Of course,
you are people. If you have been the head of a district security coordinating council before, you have been DC for 8 years.
If you're a police officer,
if
you're a military officer, and then you do things that are not appropriate.
So
because you are taking instructions from somebody higher.
The two of you. We have a young voter population. We have a young, wider population. You look at the demographics. How do we need to conduct this electioneering within a very peaceful atmosphere?
We should base these elections on issues, and I can assure you that when our manifesto is launched, we will tease out all the issues that attract young people. We will put out our message, and we believe that we will be attacking or be doing this on two things, on organization and proposition. Organization on how we intend to carry our message, and proposition how we intend to deliver that message, the message we intend to put out. And I can assure the good people listening to us, I can also assure young people that our manifesto is a people's manifesto. It's a manifesto that speaks to the aspirations and challenges that confront young people. And I can assure them that they will find solutions within the manifesto of the NDC.
How do we conduct this electioneering?
They can only disappoint the youth in Ghana. They cannot assure them of anything.
That's your response?
I threw them a challenge. I gave them a 60. I told them that, you see, former President Mahama, he's had the opportunity before to be vice president and president. And Madam Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman has also been minister in charge of education before. So these two people, they've gotten the opportunity to serve. I threw that challenge to them. That is, we have been in power for 3.5 years. This is what we have done. And even next week, I'm going to slap them again with another 40 achievement. I mentioned 60. He could not even come up. He could not even challenge. He could not. All he kept saying was that, oh, we are waiting for our manifesto. Our manifesto will be people-centered. It will be youth-centered. Tell us what Mr. Muhammad did for the young people in this country.
Don't worry. We'll
tell us. You have not been able to do it.
We will tell you. But
so,
don't
worry.
We have done
I asked the question, how do we intend conducting this electioneering?
I have already started that. I have made sure that it's an issue-based thing. It is about what you can do for the youth.
The 60 question is part of the issue.
It is part of the achievement.
And 40 is coming.
And then 40 is coming. We have already researched into our achievement. We already have some 200 life-impacting, achievement from the new patriotic party. We gave them only 60. We will slap them again with another 40 next week. And let's see if they can respond. Even the 60, they are even, dazed.
Nobody is dazed.
We have already started the issue.
Henry Nanabwache. Henry Nanabwache is the National Youth Organizer of the ruling MPP. And alongside him is George Okpare-Addo. He's also the youth organizer for the NDC. And apparently they're friends. They're also both professional lawyers, so it helps when they are doing the argument. They're friends though, so don't always say that, well, enemies can be friends. But it looks like all is set. We just have some few months to December 7, 2020. And all of us would have to keep our eyes right here on JoyNews, get the latest update. Please make sure throughout the rest of your day, you do get interactive. Facebook JoyNews on TV is always available for you. We also do have a Twitter handle at JoyNews on TV. We have our Instagram page, and then you have YouTube, JoyNews TV, always streaming live, and myjohnline.com, where you get all the best aggregated content right here in Ghana from us. Well, it's why we have to transition, go to the studio, and then we'll be right back.
Hey, that's right. That's right. Hey, come on.
Adena, Ghana for money, why say you give me book? Government give me books, they make we learn. Now, Pasco, you go come. Nothing come for the teen side. Nothing come for the teen side. The men so we pay, give them to where they send it out, but nothing can see. Obi any my bossa. Obi any my bossa.
Fellow Ghanaians, this is a letter from the countries to the president. Nana, then what you do? You make we solve this book from cover to cover, cover to cover, page to page, English, already, everything.
Well, following this, a number of concerns that were raised. The Ghana Education Service decided to take an action, but the president did an intervention midway through the day of Sunday. So we had the president also giving us a statement. The director of communications at the presidency, Eugene Ahin, signed that statement, and we'll apprise you of what the statement is indicating. But we just want to have a bigger conversation. And he did indicate that the president has directed the Minister for Education, Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, to engage the Ghana Education Service to reconsider the decision to ban the 14 dismissed final year senior high school students. And we all do know they're taking part in the WASSCE. Now, according to the president, though the act of indiscipline and then what they did was intolerable, which of course have led to the dismissal of these students. The president was of the view that the dismissal alone is enough punishment and will serve as a deterrent against future acts of indiscipline. And so he directed that the Minister of Education, needed to take the actions that were proper to pardon them. Well, it's almost like the president was appealing, but we all do know that's not an appeal, because before the statement by the presidency, we did have Child Rights International, one of the foremost leading child advocacy think tanks, also issuing a statement. It was signed by its executive director, Bright Appiah, and Mr. Appiah is joining us. Good morning to you, Mr. Appiah. But we all know that since the last conversation you had on this, a number of people seem to have joined the call as well. From that statement that he issued, perhaps that how far-reaching was it? Did you directly write to the ministry, the Ghana Education Service, or the presidency? Please unmute for us. Right, can you unmute for us? And but we're having on stream.
Oh.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm saying that officially we did not write to the presidency or the minister, but all that we did is to issue a public statement, believing that some of this information will reach the quarters that it deserves. And then also, as part of the advocacy work, we also have to use the backdoor to do some engagement. So we do that of outcome that we are seeing. So and that's the most important thing. So we are okay with the decision so far. But there are other things that we need to interrogate further, especially based on the letter that emanated from the presidency and what it's seeking to do. So we're just hoping that everything will be fine.
In this sort of engagement, for actions such as this that the president has undertaken to be possible, how far-reaching should it be, or has it been?
Yeah, well, I have carefully gone through the letter, and I feel that all that the president did is to ask his appointee to have engagement with a statutory body to see how best they can deal with the matter. So from that point of view, I think that it is not like the president is seeking to usurp the powers of Ghana Education Service, but rather to make appeal to Ghana Education Service to reconsider the decision that they've taken. And the president also went further to say that at least from his point of view, he thinks that the dismissal is enough punishment to serve as a deterrent. So clearly there are issues that the president raised. But even on the issue of dismissal being used as a means of punishing them, I personally have some issues with it. But at the end of the day, what we seek to achieve has to do with the fact that the student will be given the opportunity to write their exams. Because from our point of view, we don't think that Ghana Education Service do have the power to deny children the right to write the exams. And the statement of the president and also that of the NAT and other organizations point to the fact that that decision was harsh. For that matter, they have to soften it, and they have listened. And I know Sunday a lot of discussions went on. So I'm hoping that this morning the student will have the opportunity to write their exams.
Okay, we have to bring into a conversation Peter Ante. He is Executive Director for the Institute for Education Studies. Now, Peter, from where we left off with Mr. Appiah, it means that there need to be some further engagement after the period of this pardon with either administrators, student body heads, parent association, and even teachers, right?
Yes. We need to restructure our punitive system in our senior high schools. We need to make clear what punishment would be meted out to students as and when they disobey the rules and regulations. I agree with Mr. Appiah, especially when he says that it looked as if GES wanted to stamp the authority on the issue, because you see, if you look at how this thing was happening, it started with one school, then 2, 3. By the last count, we had about 6 schools that have recorded some of these incidents here and there. It was escalating, and it was important on the part of the Ghana Education Service to stamp the authority and try to show that if you go beyond what you're supposed to do, you will be given the requisite punishment. Doing that, they might have done it or gone overboard, because technically, as the letter came out, it was clear that GES had no power to ban students from writing their exams. It was a contract between the West Africa Examination Council and the students, and therefore asking them not to, banning them from writing the exams was overboard. And we were thinking that this could have been easily handled by the Ministry of Education by consulting or in conjunction with the Ghana Education Service, and not the extent that we've seen that it has gone.
Mr. Appiah, you have, with your organization, worked largely with students, especially at the second cycle level. Even from the time they make entry or even prior entry until they complete. And even after completion, you still keep up or keep pace with them. If the ban was enforced or the dismissal was also enforced, their inability to take part in the examinations, Mr. Appiah, what would have been the repercussions? Or how vastly would they have affected the students?
Well, it will mean that we have terminated the progress that they want to make by a year or 2. But with our experience, we realize that a student who has gone through some of these things, it takes them about 2 to 3 years to recover. Sometimes they not even go to sit for exams, but parents who are in the position to do that help them to rapidly recover from some of the effect that they have to go through when some of these things happen. So it's not an event that we need to just issue on the surface, but a lot of thinking and interrogation must go into it before we come to that conclusion. Again, if you look at the various levels of punishment, some of them, their punishments were not criminal in nature. It's purely a moral, issues of morals. So the determination of the kind of punishment that we have to give to them of it, and not provide that kind of reformation where they would understand that the act that they engage in is purely a wrongful act and is also criminal, then it means that we have not changed anything about their behavior. We've just asked them to go back to society and begin to live that kind of character again. But when it comes to children's rights, especially those who are below the age of 18 years.
Well, Peter, can you carry on also from where Ms. Appiah may have lost?
Not for us to give them a punitive measures, active faith, and then contribute meaningfully. So all the hello.
Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Bright.
hello.
Peter, wait. Bright, please go ahead. Just conclude.
Yes. So it do not serve them good, and society is also going to lose on this student. So the appropriate thing for us to do is to engage them.
Well, Peter, just carry on from where Ms. Appiah left off, because once there's going to be a truncation for 2-3 years, it means we leave them to the wider society. What risk also are there for them recovering?
Yes, that is the most dangerous part. Asking the students not to sit for any exams for 2 years, I think that is what the WAEC law says. It's enough punishment to disorganize the student for the rest of his or her life, and that is why if we reconsider this decision, I think it's possible that this will be overturned and then they will go back and then write the exams. But talking about some of the issues being moral, it's true, but that should also send a signal to all of us in the education space that there is something we are getting fundamentally wrong with our education system. We have made a point that we all know in the education system, you develop the three domains of the individual. So you are talking about his hand, which is the psychomotor. You are talking about his mind, which is the cognitive, and you are talking about his heart, which is the affective. It seems that our education over the years, and more importantly, now that our basic education is likely to be redefined so that the child stays 14 years in school before he leaves, it is important that we make things, we develop our curriculum in such a way that the child's moral values, his understanding of society, his appreciation of the personality that fits well into society is given much premium. It is important that we pay particular attention to the affective domain of education as we continue with our curriculum reform, because if not for COVID, we would have we will be talking about reforming the GHS. I think the process is still ongoing, and the SHS curriculum. And doing that, we have to be very careful and plan accordingly so that we'll be able to mold the student to fit into the society. We are not just interested in just developing or bringing out a student just because he's supposed to enjoy education. I don't think that is the essence of education in Ghana. So if we're able to ask ourselves the question, what kind of student do we want to see at the end of the 14 years of the child's education, then we will be able to know what values, what morals, what disciplinary issues, what personality that we would want to develop in the life of the students. An assertive person, somebody who understands the society, somebody who is responsible, respectful, somebody who appreciates, and somebody who will be able to convey his disagreement to the opponent without resorting to violence. These are things that we need to push forward, even as child rights activists, in order that in the near future we don't have people who have gone through the education system, but they have no moral reformation.
Now, as we try to wind up this conversation, there's an instrumental aspect of how technology has permeated the general well-being of our society. Ms. Appiah, are you still on stream? Okay. Ms. Appiah? Well, so we seem to have lost Ms. Appiah. We're working on his network. But the social media has played a critical role on the internet. I know in the code of the Education Service, students are not supposed to be having mobile phones, but also it's a learning tool, a learning kit. At the end of the day, what do we think the role has been in trying to get the first video viral, influencing other students in other schools, and how can we curb it? Peter.
We cannot rule out the role of technology in our education system, especially at this time that we saw that there was a challenge with continuing physical education, and therefore students will have to continue education online. We saw the need for technology in the system. I've listened to the GS, I think the board chair, saying that the use of mobile phone as an education tool has started in some of the schools, and that they are working around the clock to come out with the modalities of using these gadgets on campus. I must say that in as much as we would want to allow students to use these on campus, it must come with the requisite restrictions. And of course, we need to make sure that they do not abuse its use. And that is what we are seeing now. The mere fact that the students are on social media platforms and they have access to these gadgets, they want to record themselves and then put it out there for others to see. How do we deal with this issue? If we really want students to use these gadgets, then we will have to go to the extent that maybe we will have to bar them from, we have to use technology to bar these students from accessing these social media platforms on campus, or maybe they would have to keep these mobile gadgets with the relevant authorities, and when the need comes for it to be used, they go for it and use it. I think these are ways that we can look through and then ensure that students would not be able to use the technology as we go ahead. It's a very tricky issue, I must say. It's something that we will have to think through critically, because the disadvantages sometimes might outweigh the advantages. And we cannot also say that in this time we are not going to allow our students to be technologically savvy. So how do we balance the two? I think the policy directive that the ministry and the Ghana Education Service will be working on should be looking at these things, possible restrictions on possible sites, and also maybe seizing these gadgets to a particular authority, and when they are needed for referencing, for research, for other things, students would be able to go and use it. We can also look at the way technology is used in other jurisdictions and adapt it to suit our peculiar situation.
But look, what should be the lessons for the other ones that are part of the pack? We're not only talking about this badge, but the next year we're going to have another badge, and there are even backlog of students in second year, third year, or the first year as well, or even those incoming.
Roland, you see, that is why I think the GS took that decision, because that decision was too harsh, but very deterrent enough for anybody who would want to go that path to think twice about it. Because you go through the education system and you will not be able to write your exams for the next 2 years, then it means that you have wasted your time. And that, to me and to us, we think that is the reason why GS went that particular path, although we are saying that it was a too harsh a decision. But we think that that's the reason why they went that path. And that should send a signal to those in SS2, SS1, that you are in the school to go through the education system. The government is spending a lot of money on you. It is your responsibility to be a very obedient and responsible student. go through the system. When you have challenges with the system, you go through the appropriate means by which you have that has been laid down for it to be addressed. You don't resort to violence. You don't resort to using abusive languages and other things. You don't do that. You go through the channels of communication that have been laid down in the school for it to be picked forward by the authorities. But if you don't do these things and you would want to go the other way, then you should be ready to face the requisite punishment that will be meted out to you. And I think that as a society, sometimes when these things happen, instead of us to quickly jump into the defense of the student, we need to reprimand the student. We need to let the student know that whatever they did was wrong. And then before that, after that, then we come and then ask for clemency. I think that is the way we should go. Sometimes I feel sad that as soon as the GES letter came out, people started bastardizing the Ghana Education Service and trying to say that what they are doing is A, B, C, and D. But I was thinking that it was a measure for them to stamp the authority on what it was developing in the schools so that students will not pick up this bad behavior. We should encourage our institutions to call people to book when they do wrong, but when it is excessive, we should say it with a little bit of carefulness.
Well, we know. Look, we need better sanity or a comprehensive sanity within the second cycle, if not the education sector. But it looks like the Ghana Health Service took a decision that we all thought was good. The overwhelming comprehension of what they've done is that they were really having control over the situation. But we know that on the other hand, we've had a number of events, either teachers being punished because they didn't take the right sort of administrative decisions, etc. Does that send the signal that maybe the administrators, the teachers, really don't have the control or are afraid to take the right sort of decisions at a point in time?
Roland, you know that there is a little challenge in the senior high schools, and we engage these teachers a lot. And one of the things we have come to learn is that the teachers now they apply this thing they call teach and leave. Teach and leave meaning that whatever happens within the school system, which has got nothing to do with the teacher's classroom instruction, or that will prevent him from undertaking his duty as a teacher in the school, the teacher does not want to be involved in. And that is simply because along the line, we saw some of the teachers going overboard with carrying out these punishments that are supposed to be meted out to the students. And because of that, Ghana Education Service and the requisite institutions came in and punished these teachers. Now, in the event of communicating to the general public and the students that teachers have a limit to which they can carry out these punishments, I think the communication went bad. And what the general public and the students picked was that teachers cannot do or cannot instill discipline in our students. Now, because of that, parents whose students have gone through certain kinds of punishment have come out to even sometimes condemn these teachers. The Ghana Education Service itself, sometimes when teachers have gone overboard, have come out to punish these teachers. And these have sought to reduce the mandate of the teacher in instilling discipline to the student. And that is why in most of these campuses, teachers will not want to talk about student issues when it comes to they going overboard or they showing signs of indiscipline. And that is why we are suggesting that we should, as a matter of urgency, look at our whole disciplinary issue or framework in our senior high schools, because it is important, and make it clear that the teacher still holds the key to ensure discipline in our schools. We should make it clear that the teachers still, we should make it very clear, and I have to repeat this point, that we should make it clear that the teacher is still mandated to instill discipline in the child, not in a way that will physically harm the student or psychologically harm the student, but in a way that will reform the students in a positive light. I think that's a conversation that we need to have. And if you're able to do this well, I'm hoping that going forward we'll be able to get students that are well trained and fit into the society that we are living in. We should be careful because these students in the next 10, 15 years, they are going to be the teachers, they are going to be the bankers, they are going to be the politicians. So if you are not able to discipline them at this stage and instill the kind of values we cherish as a country into them, then we are likely to see a different breed of future leaders coming up, which would derail the sources that we have taught as a country. Of course, they will be teachers teaching our kids.
Okay, Peter.
What kind of teachers are we training? Well,
Peter Ante is Executive Director, the Institute for Education Studies, helping us with the discussion. Early on, or just for a larger part, we had Bride Apia, Executive Director for the Child Rights International think tank or NGO. But it's where we have to go to Odododiodoo, and Nancy Emefajradose is having a conversation with the constituents or residents on what they thought of the just ended voter registration exercise.
Went wrong and how we can improve it going forward. So I'm currently here at Bokom, Odododiodoo constituency, and I have with me 4 gentlemen who have gone through the process, and I want to find out from them how exactly this process went for them. So thank you very much, all of you. So I have with me Samuel, Aite, I have Edward J, I have Samuel, Sape, and I have Adi with me. So let me start with you, Samuel. Auntie, what did you also have your voter registration exercise? Where? Okay. Auntie, how did the process go? At night saying.
Oh, I didn't know the Omusha say no, it's gidi kakrabi te abemu and a copy 2 weeks, any 3 weeks moon, and a muju by ebe we anu de ukopua obi anio by send the idea no year no asha se no na omu na si ye say obi bia send yare no aye nti COVID-19 nti baby a vote no a wo ye ID card no train ye di be ba ho ba amonfo bi omu nti ase special NDC for omu kachire omu nipa no say oh omu bua omu famba omu bua enti say di ba na say enye opo na vote a ko na go ye by force enu na ko ye problem enti ama any one police station say omu figure no ye be me say 1,000 I didn't know I 2,000 because Mimi was Akufo and even so Freeman Methodist. Freeman Method omo register or no more about Akufo omo nyina ba register afi ye the idea no ba Freeman Methodist who so obi an to me nko because omo nyina ba Akufo.
Okay, let me just translate what he's saying. So he's simply saying that at the beginning it was a bit chaotic because there were, for instance, there are 2 polling stations in this area. Yeah. Now, the first phase was supposed to happen at the polling station A, and the second phase, or getting towards the end, will be at polling station B. But however, the other residents didn't know about it because there were rumors going on that if they are unable to register at polling station A, that means that they can't register ever again. So when the polling station A was done, polling station B became empty, and so he felt that that thing caused a lot of inconvenience for a lot of people. I'll come back to you again. Mami Sadi, I heard that now we do now polling station men are now then I observe or doing say and I said they be waiting improving in the next future.
Medium year party agent or Methodist Freeman. Yeah, problem be ba me on say registration ko so or ban rounds no ba check so say nipa bebre wa no mu ni nose mask any face mask no check nose mask the face mask any the PC for MPP no so ban rounds say baby a or baby say baby problem be wa say dey be say problem be wa na wa free police ba nya problem bebre wa ba dey na NDC for ya na nyambo ni say so wo na we a no bi nim say we wo party so ba na onim say we unim no wo area nim na wa free na ko say kaswa no ko stay order so ba do person be register so minim say we wo party on be see dey bi we wa free ba on ko register wo bibia ni on ba omo afria ba omo ye adwuma wa no omo ye adwuma wa dia omo spend 20 more than 12 hours wa yenim se a na ye wo omo wa ba se bibi na wo be kan omo si de bi ba minim se ade no de o Ghana so wo ye Ghana ne a wo betumi register enti che se wo pese wo be register wo bebe a wo ade wo be ye adwuma wa wo right se wo be ye wa because wo ye Ghana ni who spending more time and he said, Bibia, almost see Debbie, say, who call baby, I want to say, assemblyman who are no year, Jumaya, who call now, see, media mean, say, a registration. Who to me register, Obi say, Obi, to me, not time of you know, be register. Maybe on your card, or the bay scanner, or the bay new chips, and Sima Ayla, or Beba. Ntokwabi amba some bay ntokwabi police warrant e kon fine ba me onusi oya ade pa sesia so balance nya baby a omu ye registration pen omu oche nose mask so ba nipa na wa around ni nyina obe coffee fie mu obe che nose mask any sanitizer any
na social distancing is same because other places no kwa go for crowded ho bebre na onim so almost say na easy e ka pa ye cho say ye ma space and the day mu so na be at least virus no and spread now police station no night saying
na first week of registration nipa bebre na ba register me nim say omo free different police station omo nim say bebre a omo ba omo enti on the first week no yanya bebre yanya nipa bebre wo e dey po ye more than 400 ba na ba third week fourth week no na numbers no decrease eba form last week nipo wo betena se ahun ebe 2 hours na nipa ba ko be ba yenya 15 a day 13 enti first no na first week na overcrowding kakra but as the weeks goes on numbers no decrease enti yenya problem or social distance work.
So Adi is talking about the social distancing and how people were trying to observe, the various COVID-19 protocols. He's talking about the fact that the mayor of Accra was here. Also, the MP came around. They came to distribute nose masks to people who could not afford and bring sanitizers and all the other things. But he thinks that because of the education that didn't go down well with people who ended up crowding in one particular polling station. That's what caused a lot of confusion during the first week. He said security men were also there. He's a polling station agent, right? He's a polling agent. So he was able to observe everything that happened at his polling station. So he says very little chaos happened, and so everything was smooth at his concerts or his polling station. But then come to Samuel. Samuel, you've been here in this area. Odododiodoo, if it comes to election, it be hot spots. Yes. It be hot spots. Every day, Ghana, we know, anytime there's election here, all the media houses, they want to come here because here be where the action day. So I want to know, the registration exercise, no, not action woman, BBC, and I think BBI was peaceful.
Indian page, my yoga. Indian page, Onuga. They all woman, start here, no, I say, Takok Bakakra, and this 4 years, I know. There is no more for be about on the 18 years. No, on some guarantee. In Peninsula, and see a man talk about a bat. And I don't may only buy the Becassa, say, Yan Fabia, and the DNC. After etching, Bibia call fine wa and see. But to be a Pesamican, Pesamican, easy say, yes, I registration, I say on church in my ye, and yes, I be high. Yes, sir. Baby, I say, oh, free, I could be all registered and say, yes, time on chip, Bibi, or Mucha, Bamu, and Sana, Maya, and see when I better me come. Okay, so he is talking about the fact that yes, here's a hot spot, but it was at the beginning where some people decided to bring in people from other people who were underage, from other constituents come and register. That's where some confusion happened. He is just asking that the EC next time, if he wants to do anything of such sort, they should let the education go down to the ordinary Ghanaian, because sometimes people do not have the full understanding of how things went down and all. But also, what's in that area for how many years? And that means we're a kingpin or area, I say. It is other places no ya call in Kofaka say we on your Ghana on your Ghana. I have say more record the BBC and I'm only who has say. I had the ambassador. I had the Bibia Koso come. Obiana away with the enemy Bibia who free Bibia what we see other when we say we're different people for her.
aha de yen oh mayor yade pa mayor de yade bana maunsu o yade MP no de oba no enye ni lantiva na po the coming MPP you can o yade pa o next o chiche bibia fine o ma tokoba no waba no wa secretary o peaceful bana mai
it wankasa process no then I would dream say o notice ya o advice for EC say next time so be registration where ya or be man na yes na be smooth.
Yes, EC dey do the sa or an a chim on a che we no to say next 1 week ye ba that 1 week no na yes some problem be kakra be mu won say see I come soon ye ade no it's a week 2 weeks 3 weeks no be ada form fine.
Well, so Bukum, the Odododiodoo constituency, it's where Nancy Amafajradose is bringing to us the views of some residents on how they, by their own perspective, assess the just ended voter registration exercise. I know you do have a view of your own. Just in case you do, please make sure that you log on to Facebook or Twitter and then tag us as always. Well, we next would have to apprise ourselves with the latest from the world of entertainment on AM Showbiz with Kadi. It's up next.
Good morning and you're welcome to the Showbiz segment right here on the AM show. My name is Kadi and this morning you're going to be hanging out with Kelvyn Boy. Good morning to you, Kelvyn Boy. How are you doing?
I'm good, my beautiful queen. What's up?
Charlie, nothing much. Oh, it's been a while we heard from you and I wanted to know how you're doing and how you've been surviving during this pandemic.
Oh, I'm good and I'm staying safe all the time. That's the main thing. And then I'm still working. You can see the collaborations all around.
Yeah.
So and we are still working. Corona or no corona. He's still working, man. Trust me.
Okay. Now, we want to know. Now, we've seen you in a feature with Wendy Shay. How did it all happen? Because we knew about this, you know, kind of like rift, misunderstanding between you two. And all of a sudden, you guys surprised us with a new song. You featured on her new song. How did it all start?
Okay. First of all, big up Wendy Shay. And big up all the bloggers who make the fight came between us, Charlie, because sometimes it's meant to happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I told them, say, it wasn't intentional and all.
Okay.
But when something happens, like a lot of when you are like pissed off or you are upset, sometimes you don't think of what you say. You understand? So whatever we said back then, I think it was because we were all pissed off.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
Yeah. So they realized that, said, no, we can do something out of this. We can make something out of this instead of like taking it personal.
Yeah.
You get me?
Yeah.
Because it could be said, my cheddar and all. So they reached out and I listened to the song. I was like, yo, this is business. This is business. Forget about whatever. So I love the song, the storyline. I did my verse, we shot the video, and so Wendy Shay is my best friend now. My best friend. I'm even crashing on her.
She's your best friend now?
Yeah, I'm even crashing on her.
As in, you want to date her or something?
No, I'm just joking.
Okay, so it's like you guys have gotten more closer, right?
Oh yeah. And that's the good thing. Like people like us, that people the fans have different perception that they are fighting, they are not cool. You understand? And the next day we give them another picture. Mm-hmm. I think it's healthy for the industry.
Yeah. Okay, now talking about business, what else do you do aside music? Do you have any side hustle that you do? What else do you do aside music?
Aside music, yeah, a lot too.
Yeah, tell us.
A lot.
What else?
I do a lot. I know go to mention, but I do a lot.
Like what? Okay, just tell us like 1 or 2 things that you do aside music. Why are you laughing? Tell us.
I do a lot.
And then
if you call me, if you call me say Mason work said,
you go to do. Okay. All right. Now I'm asking this because we saw videos and photos of you purchasing a new Benz and a new Honda during the pandemic. And I just wanted to confirm, like people are losing money during the pandemic, and Kelvyn boy, you're buying cars and stuff.
Yeah, but for me, I will always remember 2020, and I will always remember Corona because I made money through this pandemic, whatever. You know, touch me. This pandemic, yeah, that's when I saw my blessings. So,
oh really?
And I get you.
I get you. I get you. So this is a time where you've made more money.
Yes, starting. We go now. We start simple.
Hey.
We just got started.
Yeah. Okay, now tell us about your recent single. Tell us about Killer Killer. Yeah.
Killer Killer is a beautiful song that got recorded in the UK, in London. So, right after recording, the next 2 days we shot it because it was a big tune, a classic standard, and you know the level. I love the production, and I love the fact that it has that UK vibe, and the video is neat.
Yeah.
So we shot it, but Corona slow us with the release small because we wanted to really know. And Momo featuring Dark Vibes and Mugi was doing well, so we had to cool down and make it go small. You understand? So we just released Killer Killer, and then it's really doing well out there. You like the video, yeah?
Yeah, I love the video. The colors, the venue, it's just so different. That's what I really wanted to know about it. I really love the video.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, away from all that, with the incident that happened in Ashaman, it was reported to the police, right? And we want to know how investigations have gone so far.
Yeah, I reported it to the police, but I withdraw it because I thought of who came to do that. And you know, some of these guys here, they are just, some of them are on the street and they are just they're just waiting for something to happen and will do things. So some of us, you know, we don't have to also attack them that way.
Okay.
We don't have to also respond to them that way because they are meant to be like that. Some of them are just on the street and they just do things, you understand?
Yeah.
So I thought of myself well, I thought of the brand well and whatever. And I thought of the fact that, okay, it's not a problem, but the fact that, say, it's Corona and things are not going on, and show Abba, you have gotten a show and someone is stopping you, or someone is trying not to let you play the show, no?
Yeah.
Me, I see it as a good thing because if you are not doing well, we won't fight you.
Okay, yeah, but have you, people were saying that it was childish of you to drag Stonebwoy into the whole thing after the incident happened. What do you have to say about that?
Oh, but I don't remember when I mentioned Stonebwoy in name, say, I drag him.
Okay, all right.
I don't remember when I mentioned Stonebwoy's name in the incident.
Okay, so the tweet was not about him.
Any sensible person, where you know the guy who came to do that, you know, any sensible person, who guy need be a first thing everybody think there. Even if I've not spoken, like even if I've not said anything, and you.
Okay, so that was Kelvyn boy. I'll continue the conversation with him and bring you more of that later. We're talking about the incident that happened in Sharman, and that's all we have for Showbiz. There's more Showbiz at midday with Becky. My name is Kadi.
Well, that's it for the show, and Kadi, thank you for this great conversation.